drink, or should I tell on you?
You can tell on me, but it was offered.
Oh, okay.
So,
Or maybe you're just saying that so I don't tell on you.
Hmm. We'll never know. You're gonna
Dude,
twirl your stash there,
dude, your meal looks so good. The picture you sent.
dude. That thing filled me up. I couldn't even finish it.
Yeah.
It was delicious. So Summer just did that for the first time, putting grapes in there, which I wouldn't think of.
I like it.
But and you might think it's a little too sweet having the grapes and sweet potato in there, but
not at all.
Yeah, it was delicious.
That looked delicious to me. I love bowls that are just like a concoction of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So good.
Power food.
I know. A power bowl. It's a power bowl.
And the kale was pretty good in there too.
Oh. Yeah. I haven't had kale too many times, to be honest.
Kale is so it comes out the same as it enters. Right? So, but also like I'm wondering, do you get any benefits then from eating kale if it comes out the same way? Like, does your body extract any nutrients from it?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I've never looked it up specifically with kale, but you would think if it looks the same that it might not be metabolizing completely. Right. So it's like a great question.
Chewing it enough?
I would have to look that up. That's a good question.
Are you chewing it enough, Andrew? Like, is it coming out? Basically, I guess actually, the better question not. Is the kale coming out full leaf? Because if it's coming out full leaf, you're not chewing it enough, probably.
Yeah.
Especially really with something that like a cruciferous type thing like that, like you're gonna have to. It's like chewing is gonna be your best bet because it's so fiber heavy. That fiber, the fiber we don't actually digest anyway. So the fiber itself will pass through your system. So if you don't chew it well enough, then the fiber itself is gonna stay. The fiber is gonna stay intact. Because it doesn't digest in your system and move through your system like that. So
that actually makes a lot of sense. And I feel like with that bowl particularly today, I didn't chew very much at all. I almost ate it like a dog, just like just swallow it. But I've also noticed arugula comes out the same way.
Mm-hmm. On arugula, like on fancy burgers, arugula.
I don't think I've had arugula on a burger. I always kind of like mine just like ketchup, mustard, cheese. But
wait, arugula, it's like the little squiggly plant looking kale looking thing, right? Okay.
It's bitter. It's super bitter.
But my old restaurant had an arugula pesto pizza.
Oh,
Clayton knows I brought that home pretty often.
Oh shoot, Clay, we gotta get going for if you're on the timer stream. What's the latest we can stop? I'm gonna eye the time.
So I actually already hit record. I mean, I'm already recording. We're already streaming live. You guys are talking, so I just hit it.
I prefer it this way anyway than like start. This way is way better.
I agree.
Anyway, so okay, good to know. What is your end time though?
I got to leave by 4:30. So 4:30 my time.
So 5:30. Okay, yeah, I'll keep
I'm signing off a couple of minutes before that.
We definitely should be good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'll do a little. Do you want me to do a little clap so you know where we start in the episode?
No, because we're already live. So let's not do a clap for that.
We're live. Okay.
I'll just listen. Do you want me to run the song, or you just want to keep going?
No, we're good.
Cool. All right.
We are good. We're good.
Talk about it.
So, gents, I thought today would be really appropriate to talk about something that affects just about everyone related to fitness. So just about everyone seems to be very busy. People go from thing to thing, whether it's from work to family to whatever it is. People seem to be short of time. And this is common practice here in the U.S. It feels like everyone just being so busy all the time. In ways that's great, in ways that's not always so great. But regardless, it's important to get your fitness in. So I thought today's episode would be appropriate to talk about how to train when you are short on time, since this is a very real thing. And Clay, I thought it would be a good idea for us to give, a few extra details besides me just telling everyone to wake up early, since I'm biased toward that and I love the morning time and everything. So I thought we would go through a few of these for the Friday debrief today.
This is going to be some really useful information for you guys. Ultimately, what you're going to find from this is greater flexibility. And whether we're talking about life or our exercise program, flexibility is almost always a positive.
And some of these can be applied even if you aren't short on time, but for the context and purposes of today, that is what we are mainly talking about. So let's get right into it. So, number one, how to train when you are short on time. And number one is going to be pre-schedule your training. Now, what I mean by that, if you consistently have a busy life, you may have to do a little bit of prep work to make sure that you're getting your training in. And like we already mentioned, just about everyone is busy, at least to some capacity, whether it's work, family, uh, other activities, whatever it is, most are pretty busy. So instead of just winging it every day, let's make sure we have at least a bit of a plan or a bit of a schedule. So the first thing that I recommend doing would be look at your schedule in its entirety. And from there, try to find a time slot where you could see yourself being the most consistent. So this is a good place to start. So for me, as you guys know, and as I just said, I'm a big proponent about working out in the morning for a multitude of reasons. And it's not just because it's where I enjoy it the most and that I love the morning so much, but it's also because this is where I can be the most consistent. And if I think about it, as the day goes on, later in the afternoon, I don't always feel like I have as much energy to be able to train. And I've also noticed too, a lot of people, if they train after work or the late afternoon or evening, sometimes it's a negotiable thing to them. They say, okay, do I feel like it or not? Should I do it? Oh, I'm kind of tired. I had a rough day at work. And a lot of times that kind of ends with not doing your training session. Now, with the normal standard American work schedules, normally 8 or 9 a.m. or so till 5 p.m., most people, like I mentioned, will just say they don't have the energy to train after work. So I do have to recommend, though, Clayton, to some people, I do have to say it, I had to bring it up at least once today. If you are getting decent sleep, I do recommend you consider training in the morning. Yes, this is not for everyone, but I also think many people don't do it because they are so worried that they're going to feel tired. Now, a lot of people, you're going to be tired for the first couple days, maybe even a week or so, but your body is going to adjust. So if you are able to do it, I recommend giving that a try. Wake up in the morning before work, get your training in, and then it becomes non-negotiable. It's just part of your morning routine. From there, you're going to feel more energized throughout the day. You're going to feel better at work. And then at the end of your workday, you don't have to worry about.
We lost Jake. Jake
Yeah,
lost
just
internet. All right.
froze.
Well, Twitch viewers and Spotify and Apple Podcast listeners, we have encountered yet another technical difficulty. So we're going to go on the fly here and hope that Jake maybe figures out how to get back in. Hopefully his internet's not down, but we'll see how that goes. Let's see. So just to pick up where Jake left off, when you're talking about pre-scheduling your training, while Jake is emphasizing that morning time, for me, I'd like to say, be willing
Recording
to
stopped.
be creative and be willing to try different things in different times. Being willing to be open about when you're pre-scheduling your training sometimes gives you flexibility within your schedule that you never even imagined you had. For example, I am traditionally a morning time exerciser. Though there have been periods in my life where working out in the evening was absolutely the more advantageous route. Granted, right now that's not the case either. So circumstances change, so does your schedule, and so should your pre-scheduling your training. But being open to working out in periods of times when you wouldn't have normally thought you would do that, kind of could open up some new avenues. That said, we got Mr. Jakey back in the house. So I went ahead and finished up what you were saying about the pre-schedule with my own little twist, Jake. But yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. So we will move on to number 2 and do less to do more. Now, I am not a fan of this statement all the time because less doesn't always mean more or better, but more isn't always better either. But in the context, again, of what we are discussing today, I do believe in this statement. So, for example, if you're someone that enjoys performing, say, 5 to 8 exercises per your training session, which is, fair to say a lot of intermediate to advanced lifters, that's a pretty normal range they will be in, especially for people that do more physique style training, completely normal to do. But if you're that person, and you're running short on time and you say you have about 30 minutes or so to train, you may be setting yourself up for failure, excuse me, simply just having to set up your barbell or machine or whatever equipment it is that you need to exercise. Then at the end, having to put all your weights away or re-rack your machine or wipe down your machine or whatever it is, it's going to consume a lot of time. And then from there, walking over to a new piece of equipment, hoping someone else isn't using it, and then possibly having to wait, that's also going to consume a lot of time. So the recommendation, if you are running short on time like that and you have, say, 30 minutes, try doing anywhere from maybe 1 to 4 exercises, depending on your specific goals, of course, and how much time you have. If you have, maybe 30, 40 minutes, so a little bit more, try maybe closer to the 4 exercises. And then if you have even less than that, then you would favor toward that 1 exercise. These are very just general numbers. There's no exact reason behind 1 to 4. This is, like I said, just a general statement to give you some guidelines to start. So I do believe there's a huge benefit to doing less movements or exercises. And here is why. When you do less movements or exercises, you can give way more to the movements that you are actually doing. You'll notice this if you ever, say, do 8 exercises in one session versus the following week you do, say, 3. You are going to be able to give so much more energy to just those 3 exercises. So, this is something I'm definitely in favor of when it comes to movement or exercise or just being in the gym. You set yourself up to be able to master specific movements a bit easier when you're doing less movements. And from a neurological standpoint, getting more reps or getting more practice with a movement is going to help you be more proficient at that movement, which is huge. So you're also, on top of this, you're going to feel way less rushed in the gym if you're focusing on just a couple.
There's a excuse me. There's a certain amount of I'm sorry. You know what, guys? There was thunder right outside my window, and it threw me off. It's like light out and sunny still, and it's thundering outside, thundering and raining outside my window. So like I was thinking about whatever we were talking about, and then I hear, which is not quite as exciting as Jake getting disconnected, but equally, equally distracting. So anyway, as we're talking about less to do more, there's certain things that we can do, such as modifications, time modifications, range modifications. These things will get you to failure quicker and get you kind of moved on with your workout faster. That said, I would like to take a step further back from that and say, especially when we're trying to work out in a shorter period of time, focusing on quality over quantity is really going to be a strategy that's super helpful. To be fair, we should always be focusing on quality over quantity because proper form and execution are king. But when we're trying to get out faster, we can combine things like really on point form, super slow. I combine these really, you know what? I wrote quality over quantity, which is true, but the idea really being that we have tools such as time modifiers, range modifiers that help us get the workout done quicker.
Awesome. And moving on to number 3 And this is focusing on multi-joint movements, also known as compound movements. I like the term multi-joint movements a little bit better. To me, it describes what you're doing a little more. But nevertheless, same thing. So, like the name states, a multi-joint movement is involves, utilizing multiple joints and muscles during an exercise. So an example would be a back squat or a deadlift or bench press or dip, a row, a pull-up, etc. And this would be opposed to doing, say, a single joint movement, which would be a bicep curl. Now, there is nothing wrong with doing bicep curls or tricep extensions or any of these single joint movements. They're great, but they don't give you the same quote unquote bang for your buck, especially if you are short on time. Now, it's easier also to get full body strength gains with this approach versus doing just single joint movements because you are utilizing way more muscle groups in these multi joint movements versus the single joint movements.
You could, in my opinion, you could frankly just do compound muscle group exercises for the rest of your life. It's because, as Jake said, the compound multi-joint movements make up the majority of our functional real life activity. For example, when we're getting out of bed, especially if, for those of us who sleep on our front, you're literally pushing yourself off the bed to get up and out of bed. Perhaps a better example is sitting down at the toilet. It's something that we all do, and it's a squat. It's not basically a squat. It's a squat where you rest in between and take a poop. So, when we're talking about compound muscle groups and training them, especially in order to get out, to make a workout quicker, you can almost, like Jake said, you could jettison the bicep curls and you could jettison the tricep extensions because you're still working your biceps and you're still working your triceps as long as you're doing a push and a pull.
I would be completely happy with. Don't get me wrong. I do like those smaller single joint movements, but doing all of those bigger movements that you were just talking about, Clay, I would be happy doing those for the rest of my training career. And I would like to do some of the other ones, but you could still make fantastic gains in the gym from a performance standpoint and just how you feel, generally speaking, if you do those movements. And there's so much application, whether it is in life, like you were mentioning, getting out of bed or sitting down on the toilet, any of those things, to if you're a tactical athlete, to everything in between. That's what I love about those movements. And yes, they're going to take a little longer to learn for most people, depending on the movement, say like a back squat or a deadlift, but it is totally worth it to learn and will definitely give you the most bang for your buck. Now, moving on to number 4, and that is supersetting movements. So another idea with this, another way to say this would be going from one movement directly to the next with little or no rest in between the two movements. A popular way to do this, you'll see a lot of people doing two opposing muscle groups. So for example, again, doing a bicep curl immediately into a tricep extension, or doing a pull-up immediately into a push-up. Now, I will say, I think supersetting movements it's blown out of proportion a little bit with the effectiveness, and people get very excited about these because it gets your heart rate up and your cortisol is going up, and it's exciting and you feel like you're getting this great workout. So I'm not saying you aren't necessarily, but I think it's more appropriate to use supersets if you are time constrained. So overall, overrated. Yes, you can absolutely still make great gains with this, but we have to remember, whenever we're performing two movements that close together, especially with no rest, you are going to take away from the next movement. Now, what I mean, if I'm doing pull-ups first and then with no rest go into a push-up, I'm going to be somewhat fatigued from doing my pull-up, which is then going to affect my performance in the push-up. Now, from there, even after I rest a little bit, me doing that push-up, it's going to slightly impact me doing the pull-up. Even though those are opposing muscle groups, so you might think, oh, wait, that wouldn't have anything to do with it. I would have nothing to worry about. But metabolically speaking, just thinking how much your heart rate's going to be up, it's going to reduce the effectiveness of the other movement. So yes, you can still absolutely make improvements doing it this way, but it's definitely not going to be the same thing if you are supersetting. So do them if you're time constrained. Don't do them because you think you have to make gains.
Like Jake said, the supersets are super helpful for when you realize mid-workout you're behind the ball. And yes, I realized I just said they are super helpful. That was very much a pun intended. It was just a bad one. So we're going to go ahead and just move on from that. I wrote it down and I was like, don't say the joke, but I said it because I have to. I'm like a dad joke.
I was
like,
going to just say it
slightly.
sounded like a dad joke a little bit.
I feel like I live dad joke, dude. Anyway, but as far as supersets are concerned, for me especially, I mean, there is use, like Jake is saying, there is use, and there's also kind of overuse of supersets. But really, it's a tool that's excellent for when you realize that you are taking longer to do your workout than you thought you were. A lot of times just jettisoning things is the way to go as well. But, sometimes you just really need to gain yourself an extra couple minutes, and superset might be the way to go. Like Jake said, you're gonna get less you're gonna have less energy for the next set or the next movement, or I should say you're gonna be somewhat fatigued, as Jake said. But if your goal for the day is to get a good workout and not to necessarily build strength or progress, but rather just like Jake's talking about, kind of get your cortisol going, get your heart rate up, and like feel good, don't even think about it twice. Just, throw them together. And, if you need to drop something out, you drop something out.
And you'll especially notice that fatigue that Clayton's talking about if the superset is involving two multi-joint movements. So if you went directly from bench press to squat or something of that sort, it's going to fatigue you even more so than if you were doing, say, a bicep curl to a tricep extension. So just something to keep in mind, knowing how much it can fatigue you.
As kind of a secondary to the superset notion, I'd like to say too, working out with knowing that you're gonna have less time, planning a workout with dumbbells can be a really great way to, with those supersets, cut down on time, because you're not dealing with a bar and plates and machines and waiting for people and all that stuff. So, it's a kind of a different thing, but it definitely falls under the subset of the supersets because you can combine them.
I think I kind of want to chime in on that one real quick too. I think the superset movements might be pretty beneficial for a lot of people towards the end of the workout too. If you are starting to feel that fatigue, instead of focusing on supersets from the beginning of the workout to the middle, kind of maybe just focus on a nice superset towards the end as a burnout, to say.
Oh, I like that, because then it's the last thing that you're doing, so it doesn't really matter as much if it fatigues you, because that's the last part of the day. Ooh, I like that.
Hell yeah, I'm gonna do that with a client. Like, I mean, I do that with clients, but I'm gonna do that with my client tonight because you said that.
It's a great,
or some version
great
of it.
idea. I love it. And moving on to number 5, and this is breaking up your training into multiple smaller sessions a day. Now, someone that's busy may be like, why in the world would I do multiple sessions a day if I'm that busy? So this is when you are super busy. And for example, if you have a newborn or a small child, and the only breaks that you get or when your newborn is taking that little 30-minute glorious nap where you get to break just for a second there. So this is mainly for, say, very busy moms or dads with newborns. So your newborn goes down, take 10 minutes and do a quick session at that moment. And then maybe later in the day, you can do the same thing, take another 10 minutes and then do another session. So this is for someone, say you were looking to work out for 30 minutes a day or so. So one of the workouts, a great tool that you can use would be, say, a resistance band. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more in just a second. You can do a quick 10-minute resistance band workout. And then later in the day, your second workout, if you still want to complete, that 30 minutes or so, you could go for a walk or something for the remainder of the time. And I really like this application too with someone that has a busy work schedule and say the only downtime you have at work is say 20 or 30 minutes for a lunch, and then maybe during the day you get a 10 or a 15-minute break, but you really don't have that much time, especially for the people that work, longer than the standard 8-hour shift, maybe the 10 or 12-hour shifts, and they just feel like they're at work all the time, and they don't have time to drive to the gym or something. A resistance band is a great tool in this situation because you can pack it in your bag, you can bring it anywhere, and it doesn't weigh anything. And it's still resistance training technically, even though it's a band, and it might not feel like quite the same stimulus as using a barbell or dumbbell, but you can still get a great and effective workout at the convenience of wherever you are in that moment. So I do love the idea of using resistance bands.
I'd say that being willing to analyze and reframe what a successful workout is to you is a really key aspect to this, because so often we are trying to fit our idea of what a successful workout is into a period of time. And in reality, at least especially from a trainer's standpoint, success isn't success isn't met by completing everything on the program that day. Success is met by bringing in everything to every moment and making the most out of your time in the studio or time in the gym. So that said, obviously, if you're in the habit of over planning your workouts, it's worth looking at that workout and seeing if you want to break it up, put it in a smaller, make it a smaller workout and break it up a little bit more. But really being willing to take a step back and say, okay, what is actual success today? Is I think a really useful part of breaking up your training into smaller sessions in a day, because if you're willing to experiment and analyze and try different things, you're more likely to find a situation that works for you. And if in this case, if you're talking about breaking it up into smaller sessions, it does help to consider how we can be creative to do that as well. So Jake's talking about, an active parent, take that moment, take that half hour that your kid's sleeping. Similarly, if maybe you're not a parent, maybe you're somebody who likes, you're a single person and you play a lot of video games or you watch movies or whatever all day, whatever your thing is, there's probably a period of time where you can work in some squats while you're watching TV. You can work in some push-ups while you're, watching the news, or I guess I said watching TV twice, but I play a lot of video games. So I talk about, what I call gamer fitness, which is if you're a gamer, a lot of us gamers like to sit and play for lots of hours at a time. Well, lots of times that you're playing a game where, you get shot and you have to sit and wait to respawn. Well, take that moment to do some squats, to do some wall push-ups, to do some pulls with that resistance band. And if there's lots of other options, whether you're talking about other kinds of hobbies, other kinds of work, other kinds of life necessities like taking care of your kid, being willing to be creative and fit things into small spaces that you might not have otherwise thought to do so, sometimes can even be more beneficial than getting an hour of moderate exercise. Because you think about it, if you spend all day, you're with your kid for 12 hours of that day, or you're on a 12-hour shift. If you do squats if you do a squats every half hour, or, you rotate squats and push-ups and pulls like we're talking about, that's potentially more calories burned and more exertion and more resistance over time than working out having a moderate workout that lasts an hour. So, it's worth considering what it actually means to be successful.
I like your idea too of saying like a successful workout. It doesn't have to necessarily do with a random time. Like
Totally.
most people, we think of a 60-minute workout because, a lot of classes are 60 minutes, or that just happens to be the amount of time someone spends in the gym. But that's a great point. The success doesn't have to be measured by time, but to me it'd be more measured by how you feel, or like Clayton said, the quality of movement that you're performing. So if whatever you are doing, whether that is breaking a few short sessions up every single day, or you're doing an hour session or 30-minute session, how do you feel? Is it improving your quality of life? Are you getting stronger in the long run? And just very basic things like that, I think, are the way to measure the success of a workout.
You just said something really important. Does it improve our quality of life? Because let's take a second to even just like think about that. Because as soon as the answer to that question isn't yes, we've missed the point. We've missed our mark. You know what I mean? If we're spending all day, every day, in the gym, lifting, getting stronger, and, reaching new peaks, but it's not making us feel like we have an improved quality of life, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing. There are people who, higher performance equals a higher quality of life, especially like athletes, like that can equate to money in the pocket, right? But for the majority of us, we're doing it because we want to be happier and healthier. So as soon as we start doing this at the expense of our happiness and healthiness,
Can kind of defeat the purpose for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go through those real quick one more time as we wrap up. Number 1 is pre-schedule your training. Number 2 is do less to do more. Number 3 is focus on multi-joint movements. Number 4 is superset movements. And number 5, break up your training sessions into multiple times per day if you need to. All right, everyone, we hope you enjoyed the episode today. If you haven't already, subscribe to the show and leave us a review if you did enjoy the content. You can find us on Instagram at Mission Driven Made. Also, we created a free online fitness platform called The Forum, which you can find on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook and type in Mission Driven Made, The Forum, you can find us there. I'm also going to put a link in the show notes for all of you. You could click it, go to the page, and we would be happy to let you in. It's a place for other listeners of the podcast to converse and connect. And it's also a place where you can go to ask us any fitness-related question, and we would be happy to answer those for you. All right, everyone, we hope you have a fantastic rest of your Friday. And until next time, stay mission-driven.